Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about building time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. And if you've been around, even not in real estate, you've probably seen these billboards around. We buy ugly houses. You've seen them around. And so people are probably curious and you're like, what in the heck is the deal with that We Buy Ugly Houses company? And so today we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. So we've got Jeff Hotz. Jeff is a HomeVestors of America franchisee based out of Columbus, Ohio. Previous to that, a musician in the military with a couple of different branches, and then got into real estate by becoming a franchisee. A little bit here about HomeVestors. So they have nearly 1,200 franchisees in 170 markets nationwide. And so we'll dig into a little bit about that, but then too, how you can accomplish your goals in real estate by partnering with a franchise. You know, we've had a few franchise salespeople on the past talking about the benefits of, instead of, forging your own path and figuring out and having lessons to be learned the hard way, you can partner with somebody that's been there, done that, and really leverage the systems and the options that they have. And so Jeff will talk about that a little bit today too. So welcome, Jeff, to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you inviting me on.
Why don't you just kind of share a little bit about your background, what led you to get into real estate, and then talk a little bit too about why consider a franchise, and then we'll go from there.
Right. Long ago, and this isn't like where it started, but my mother was a real estate agent, and I remember going into the office and looking at the books, and I always enjoyed touring houses. I don't think the idea of real estate came from that, but it's always been something that's kind of been there. But look, I was in the military, and I enjoyed it immensely. If anybody's really young, I don't know if there's any, high school kids here, but I would recommend it's a great life. It really gets you thinking about what makes sense to you and what you want to do in life if you just don't know. I mean, some of us people, we're not the greatest in high school, right? So didn't do that great of things there. I don't think my grades were really good. So I don't think college was a great option for me. But on the other side of that, I always talk about my son. Right now I've got a 5-year-old and he's going to be one of those guys that I don't think school's right for him, but we have an ability, right? There's a lot of people out there that have an ability this way. And so I chose the military, which was great. I started out in the United States Marine Corps as a trumpet instrumentalist. And I did that for 6 years. But there's always this rumbling of real estate going on. While I was in the military, it gave me a lot of time to read and look. Even though I wasn't in college, I attended a couple little online courses and started diving into what I can focus on. Real estate at the time seemed to make a lot of sense from just the perspective of wealth, right? Wealth creation. Everything I read about wealth creation was real estate backing. So that kind of got my mind going, and it was like, maybe I need to be an agent. Maybe property management and rentals seemed pretty cool. So I actually left the Marine Corps in 2006, got antsy and got out of that. And was a real estate property manager in Washington, D.C. for a year or so. And then found out that everybody knows what was going on in real estate, 2006, 2007 or so. Not a great time to be in real estate. So I went a different direction, joined the Navy. Same thing came up through that. I was looking for more. I wanted more than just the paycheck that was coming through. I wanted to create something for myself. And real estate seemed to be the vehicle for that. Again, towards 2013 or so, it's been 10 years now since I've been doing this. I think 2012 or 2011, I really started diving into how to invest in real estate myself. We were coming through a market crash. It seemed like a good time to buy into real estate again. I just didn't know how to do any of it. Bigger Pockets is out there, and I spent a lot of time on that. And somehow I remember seeing the billboards, We Buy Ugly Houses. Everybody's seen them. Nobody really knows what occurs on the backside. I stumbled into it in a franchise magazine, I think, and called, and it seemed to be the right fit for me. Now, I did go away from the idea for about 9 months, and I spent that 9 months almost on Bigger Pockets. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know, there's a lot of people out there, you guys do it on your own, and I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out if I needed to actually have a yellow letter or lick the envelope or have a postcard, and I just couldn't figure it out. So HomeVestors seemed to make a lot of sense with what they provided for me. It's not right for everybody. It is right for some. And I think because of my military background, I'm really good at an application. You give me something, you tell me how to do it, here's the rules, here's what you do, and then I'm going to figure it out, right? And there's some things that just having that, I always say I'm like I don't know what it is now. I used to say 16-time rifle expert, but it's probably like 23 to 30, I don't know. Substantial rifle expert right out of the gate. I never fired a rifle until I got in the Marine Corps, right? And the Marine Corps was able to hone that and was giving me the ability in order to fire that rifle at an expert level with such a short period of time, being able to hone it. And I think that's what HomeVestors does. And I think that's what helped with HomeVestors too. So that's how I joined HomeVestors.
Well, and I think, yeah, for a lot of people, they like being able to be creative, kind of doing their own things. And for some people, it's like, just give me the blueprint. Let me follow it. And I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to overthink things. Just follow the instructions and move forward.
Yeah. And I think there's an amount of people that, they do want to build something. They want to build their own brand. They want to, create this thing that they created, and that's fine. Probably not right for the franchise model to fit in a box. There could be a situation where, franchising could ramp you up to that kind of situation where maybe you're taking it out on your own and blowing it up to something, I don't know. We have franchisees that have, 1,800 rentals and do 200 houses a year. So I'm not really sure where else you go, but if you want your own brand, that's where I see some people that are more, well, I want to do this, I want to create my own brand specifically and have this thing that I can own. I'm absolutely comfortable not creating my own brand and living underneath HomeVestors for what it's been able to provide. So,
right. If you can accomplish your goals, do I really care whose name's on the billboard? Is, the money that comes in, the lifestyle that comes in, or the leverage that you have, do you really care what the billboard looks like, or you just follow the plan?
Some people do. Right. And that's fine.
Right. Same thing that I talk about, when I was working on residential team and recruiting agents to the team, it's kind of like, hey, the team's not a fit for everybody. You've got to be the right personality. You've got to appreciate what's offered. And then really what's offered fills in the gaps of what you're looking for. And that really creates a good win-win situation. We're looking for a win-win, but yeah, team isn't for everybody, just like franchising isn't for everybody, but franchising can be a great opportunity. And I think it's something that so many people don't even consider, but it can provide a ton of value. So talk about the discovery process there of pursuing the franchise and how that works. Because I'm sure people are like, I've never even considered a franchise or looked into a franchise. How's that even work?
Right. Yeah. And what's interesting is my parents had a franchise that didn't work. Right. And I don't know, now that I know more about who they are as a person, I think it's more about it didn't work because they didn't work more than it didn't work. I think, you have franchising that works for some and doesn't work for others. But it's interesting because my dad told me not to do it, and I didn't listen, and I'm glad I didn't. But the discovery process, like I said before, I think you've seen all the billboards, and it was in a franchise magazine. That's the point that I know I wanted to do something bigger than what I was doing, and it seemed like I was going down the path of business, but also real estate at the same time. I was looking at real estate agency and things like that, and I know that necessarily wasn't for me. So trying to find some happy median with like business and real estate and and real estate investment specifically, and just walked into HomeVestors somehow, called, and there was a great guy, Kevin Calkin. I'll say his name. He's a real good friend of mine right now. The process of HomeVestors, when you call, is not for us to sell you on it, not for HomeVestors. That we want to make sure that it's the right fit. It's not right for everybody. It's not like, and maybe there are some franchises, and I'm sure there's a lot of systems out there where it's like, they'll just take everybody in that they want, and I think that's the biggest struggle that you have, because you do want it to be the right person, and you do want it to be, somebody that fits within the culture and does business the way that you want to do it, right? That we want to do it as a company. So do we always get that right? Well, it's not an exact, sometimes we don't. And sometimes people come in and that's unfortunate when that happens. And I think the writing's on the wall, and they do figure out it's not right for them quickly. But, we are really asking a lot of questions about, why is it you want to do this, right? What is it? What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to provide for your family? Maybe it's a monetary thing. I would hope it's not. I would hope it's something more than that. But at the end of the day, it is like, we have this lifestyle we want to create because real estate is a wealth vehicle that gets us there. The other side of that entirely is, what is it that we want to do, and how can this help us kind of fulfill us? So, for me within HomeVestors, I'm going to say I was really nervous about it because I thought it was going to be this like sneaky, shady, like real estate car salesman, like, slick back hair kind of, I'm going to have to like convince somebody to sell me their house at a discount. Look, the reality is there's nobody out there that is going to sell a house at a discount if they're not willing to sell it at a discount. It's not sales, it's not trickery, it's not anything like that. It really is just having a great discussion with a seller in order to figure out a way forward, and if there is and if there isn't. So just like for a franchisee, when a franchisee comes in, it's the same process. It's, why do you want to do this? And let me tell you all the reasons why this doesn't make sense. Right. And so I think I got attacked by all those reasons. It's like, well, it's a lot of money. Okay, so what does it cost? Let's look at the cost. Well, it's really stressful. Sure, it is. I mean, I always say in real estate, and I'm sure many of your people will agree, highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and sometimes within minutes of each other. Right. You're flying high, the day's going great, the sun's out, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call and it's like, oh my gosh, does this work? These are the things that go through your head immediately, going from, top of the clouds to, oh my gosh, is this working? Is my family still going to be taken care of? Can I still do this business? Oh my gosh, is the sky falling? Am I going to lose my ass? Like, that's in the military, we have a word for that called catastrophizing. So if you have those kinds of thoughts, know that that's not the actuality, but that's what occurs. Highest to highs are the lowest to lows, and within minutes of each other. So we want to talk about that. And HomeVestors talks about this, because if you're not the type of person that has the ability to manage stress, look, we can help you with that. That's what's great about being on a team. So it's kind of up to you we have all, if you DISC analysis or Myers-Briggs or personality profiles, we have all different profiles, right? And some profiles are right for some things and some profiles aren't right for other things. That doesn't mean that real estate isn't right if you're not the optimal profile. We do have an optimal profile for real estate, right? If you're not that person, we're going to have other discussions about what is optimal for you. And can you put people in place, or mentally, can you work through situations in a better way than maybe you don't think maybe your profile doesn't lend itself to? But these are kind of all the discussions that come up in that process. Is it right for you? Is it right for your family? What does your spouse think about it? And when we got to the end of all that questioning, I really couldn't figure out any reason why this didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, well, and I think a couple of things that you said are really important. Number one, it's a process to see if it's a fit, just like I was kind of talking about with the team, because if you're not the right fit, then you're not going to have a great experience. The reputation, it's like any, retail or otherwise, any interaction you have with business, if you don't have a great experience, you're going to tell however many times more people than if you have a good experience. So in the same way that franchise is kind of the gatekeeper, you want to make sure you're letting the right people in, that it's going to meet their needs. And that's what I've really appreciated, meeting with some of these franchise people that help to place people in franchises. It is about fit, right? It's about, is it going to accomplish my goals? How much time do I have available? Because there's all sorts of different options and opportunities out there. And then does it really fit kind of, me as a personality, what I like spending my time on? Got to make sure that stuff matches up to have the best likelihood of success. Otherwise, you're not going to want to just be like, hey, I gave them my money and now do whatever I want you to do. It's not like that. You're looking for a partnership.
Right. We don't want you to come in and immediately wish you wouldn't have done it. That's the reality.
So talk about some of those things that, instead of kind of figuring it out yourself, the things that the franchise offers to you, or some of those benefits of being a part of that versus trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that was where, you talk about bigger pockets and stuff like that, and just trying to figure out how to get people to call me, right? I think at the end, that's literally the story of me getting frustrated because I couldn't figure out if I'm supposed to lick the envelope, if it's actually supposed to be yellow, or if it's supposed to be a postcard. And, I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I don't know where the metrics make sense, and it didn't seem like it was going to work for me to just throw money at something and hope for the best. So, that's where this kind of, you look at numbers and you look at metrics and you look at KPIs, and like there was already kind of a structure in place here for that. So within the franchise, you sign the agreements and you come in as a franchise. A lot of it obviously is education, especially, I came in without any experience in real estate whatsoever. So that's a tall order right there, but they have a lot to truncate that. But in the meantime, there's already marketing in place. You've already seen the billboards, and we're already targeting sellers that are in need to sell for whatever reason. And so right out the gate, you're going on appointments and you're meeting with people that maybe want to, you would be an opportunity to buy a house. And who knows, could be whatever discount it ends up being, but that's, and systems being able to track that, CRM systems, all the technology, and then certainly the resources that you have around you from your council of franchisees. One thing that's a little different about HomeVestors and other franchises is the territory is literally the market. So I'm here in Columbus, Ohio with 13 other franchises. We all share Columbus. So, leads come from everywhere, right? And we know we want to work within the median home price here and there, but we never know where they're going to come in. We share a pot of advertising. We all contribute to that pot of advertising, and the amount of money that you put into that pot gives you the percentage of leads that you want. Hopefully you're tiering your business and have some goal planning in there to figure out what makes sense. But we all work together, as it's just shared resource list. Contractors, anytime we come up with issues, we even buy and sell houses from each other. Property management, we've got a property manager. We have some mortgage guys that kind of tell us what's going on in the mortgage industry. We've got agents that tell us what's going on the street. So when we get together, it's a great share of information across a ton of platforms to have an understanding about what's going on in the market and, how to move forward appropriately, because you can buy and sell in any market. It's just a matter of how to go about doing it. And certainly that changes daily, right?
So coming from residential real estate, right? As a residential real estate agent, we're all taught to get the highest price possible, right? We're going to sell your home for the maximum amount of money with the least amount of time with the fewest amount of hassles, right? Those are the three things that sellers want. Well, then when I moved into the investment space, I realized it's not all about the highest price. A lot of times it's about convenience. It's about situations that come up. Not everybody wants to list their house. And so I kind of had a hard time being in residential real estate for so long, wrapping my brain around the mind of the seller there, because all the sellers I talked to always wanted the maximum amount of money, So talk about that piece a little bit. And once again, you're not trying to be everything to all people. You're trying to find the lead that fits what you provide. And so talk about that conversation, maybe where this would be a good fit for somebody to sell with you guys.
Right. Yeah. And that's the reality is I don't think some real estate agents realize that there's an undertone. There's a market that occurs where people are just willing to, for time and convenience, are willing to sell and leave money on the table. I mean, we do it day in and day out. Think about it. Like, I sell something in my front yard for $10 instead of trying to make $20 or $30 or $40. Or sometimes I just give stuff away for free where somebody else is going to take that and then sell it. Right.
Because it's hassle, right? It's hassle to go through that process.
Yeah. How much is your time worth? And, for me to deal with that and make $10 more doesn't make sense. And we have situations. I mean, it runs the gamut really. And to be honest, the majority of the time, it really is sellers in need where they need to figure out how to get to the next situation. Right. So they're willing to leave some money on the table for it to be quick, to be easy, to be painless. We do have a lot of sellers that just simply don't want people through their house, and especially during COVID, that was a lot of it. They were comfortable with the discount. And they were more than happy to sell us with great reviews just based on the fact that they didn't want people through the house. And I think that's a hard struggle for some people out there and realtors and real estate agents. Look, if you've bought your house 30 years ago, I mean, they don't generally care about getting peak for the market. The reality is for us, it is an investment company and we do mean to make money. So there's only an amount, but the risk we take on is immense. And I think that's the one thing that people don't understand about this. Like, the market could crash tomorrow. I think it was 3,500 houses that HomeVestors had in 2007. Don't quote on that. I don't know. That's what I've heard. Like 30-some hundred houses throughout franchisees. And I know there's probably a lot of people out there that had property during 2008, 2009 or so when the market tanked, which were all of a sudden worth almost could be half of what they bought them for, right? So that's the risk that we take on. And I think there are a lot of sellers. You think of even from car dealers, you trade your car into the dealer for less money than it's worth just for the ability to have it happen easy. We really do try to find a win-win for everybody. Recently we bought a house last week with a non-performing tenant, seller's out of town. He bought it 10, 20 years ago. The tenant had been paying him $300 a month up until like a year ago. And he just felt bad, so just kind of let her ride it out. Now, we took on that property at a price that worked for us with the risk. And we're actually just letting her stay in there for a while until she figures out a way forward. We're not trying to be an investment company that's just going to be like, well, you got to get out now because we bought it. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I really do believe in this, like what goes around comes around. I want to be this person. I want people to respond back to me the way that I'm responding to them. Right. So, we're going to help her out. We're going to get her to a point that hopefully, and we're looking at options and we're trying to use some resources that we have. We certainly have a heck of a lot more resources to deal with a situation like that than somebody that's out of town that hasn't lived here in Columbus for 10 years or so, or whatever it was that he was. But that's the type of sellers we have. We have inherited situations where the kids just don't want to deal with it, and they're okay and comfortable with the money that they get on the table. And sometimes, look, it's not a small amount of money. Like, we're not going low for the sake of going low. Often I'm paying the highest I can actually go, and actually even pushing the envelope on the risk sometimes, based on what I feel like, is the market going to keep moving forward one way or another? And that's kind of where we are right now. We're providing, I feel like, really strong offers in this market right now here in Columbus. And then there's the other situations where we have a lot of people that just don't know where to go. So here's a situation, and I say it pretty often with sellers, like, even if we can give you $1 million, which in Columbus, Ohio, is we're not giving anybody $1 million for houses, but even if I could give you $1 million and you had that cash right now, what are you going to do after that? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, see, let's figure that out. What is it that you need? And I'll tell you, I've rehomed cats. I found a place for a bird once. We've bought cars for people. We've bought houses for people. We've traded houses. Man, I know franchisees that have bought trailers and financed that, or bought other houses and financed that. We walked away from 2 houses recently where we were able to wholesale it. I didn't make anything on it because there just wasn't any room for me in it. But if we can help that person out, then that's the benefit of this. Our intention is to move that lead through the system. It's not necessarily to purchase the property. Like, we know that a small percentage of the leads that come through we're going to actually purchase. So we don't really even focus on that. What we focus on is going out, having a great conversation with the seller in order to understand, how it is that they want to move forward and what is it they want to do. And we try to figure out if there's a win-win. And I would say we're the first people usually that say, this sounds like it's right for a real estate agent to come list your house more than a real estate investor. Am I hearing that? And if that's the case, then sometimes we get those, and that's totally fine. I mean, if they want market price, or you probably hear this a lot, I mean, they don't want to pay the realtor fee. Okay, well, I'm going to be much lower than that. So why don't you keep going down the path of listing with your realtor, because you're going to make more money that way. And if it truly is the money that you want, I'm not a good fit at all.
Having been on kind of both sides, yeah, you kind of see the client probably speaks to you based on really what they're looking for, because sometimes people think cash offer on my home. Well, I just saw my neighbor's house sold for this on the open market. We're exposing it to all buyers. So if I could get a cash amount for that, that would be great.
Right.
No, what you're getting also is certainty, right? Because how many times has it happened where, somebody goes to sell their house and something falls through, whether it's through the inspection or through the financing. And so also the beauty of what you offer, it's not only the convenience, but it's also the certainty of, if I tell you I'm going to buy your house, I'm going to buy your house. Once we kind of get through that process, there's not going to be really anything that kind of comes up that's going to, fall apart. So you've got the kind of the certainty of the deal, as well as the convenience of the deal as well.
Correct. Yeah. I would say 90% of the time when I'm making an offer to a seller, it is non-contingent, except for their ability to perform, which means I've walked through it. We're comfortable with the investment. We're taking the risk. I don't need to go in it again. I don't need anything to happen. The only thing it's contingent on is your ability to sell it to me. And if they show up at closing, then we're closing, so there is there is the, 10% where, maybe there's well and septic or something we can't see, or some situation that we need to have some kind of contingency in there for our understanding. But the majority of these are really, I can't speak for everybody, but the majority of these really are non-contingent in a way where, we come out once, we look at the property, we understand the investment, we have the ability to manage the risk. And it's moving to close.
What happens after that? So you sign on the dotted line, they sign on the dotted line at close. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you guys do with it?
It depends, really. I mean, we do, we have about, we say 5 exit strategies within HomeVestors, right? So we have an assignment of contract. We have our wholesale is where we buy it and we don't do much to it. Maybe we clean it out. We call that a wholesale. We have a Wholetail, which is maybe we fix up some of the larger items. And then we have retail, which obviously we know what that is, and rental investment. As you move up that exit strategy chain, I think you can see that the risk of the investment increases. Also, the margins generally increase because your risk is increasing, right? So those are generally the 5 exit strategies. And I do use all of them, but, I don't do assignments a lot anymore. We do close on pretty much everything. I think I did 1 assignment last year. We just not, and I'm speaking for myself. I mean, that's not HomeVestors wide. We do have all those strategies. So some areas lend it to be more of maybe a wholesale or an assignment or a rent area than something else. But it's for our model, we do fix them up pretty nicely. I would say it's somewhere between a wholetail and a retail. We put it out for the open market. I've got a great crew that does fantastic work, and that's just primarily my strategy besides the ones that we hold for rent. So we do have rent portfolio as well. And so that's generally what happens on the other side.
So that gives you an opportunity to kind of choose your own adventure. What do you want to do based on the strategies offered? And you can operate your business different than the franchisee down the street because you get to pick up the types of properties that you want to pick up. So how many rentals do you typically, like from a percentage standpoint, how many of those are you picking up along the way?
It's probably 30% of what we do in any given year. A lot of people ask, is it that you buy 4, you keep 1, or 2, buy 2 and keep 1? It's not that. I'm not smart enough apparently to figure out a model on that. The reality is, I think maybe for others, it's what's occurring around me and what comes on the plate. Recently we had a good one that came on the plate that just made sense and hit the numbers where I just readjusted what we were going to do with other properties. It's a little more fluid for me than I think maybe some other people I've heard. All based on what we have coming through, the margins of those, and what we have coming in pipeline. But probably about 30% of what we do is rent. The rest of it is retail, wholetail, and that constantly changes too. It's a little bit less on the rental side than it was last year, and certainly if I think 2019 was a larger rent amount hold than here. But we're finding just within Columbus, Ohio, with as still hot as a market as this is, it's just the numbers just don't seem to be working out. We can only get houses for what we can get them for. So that seems to adjust.
The other thing that, a lot of times people doing the cash offer piece, to the end user, they don't realize that cash offer isn't necessarily Jeff's bank account writes the check and I've got all the money sitting there. It's I'm willing to provide you an offer, but there's financing that happens on the back end where there's some certainty. So talk a little bit about kind of how that back end financing piece works on those deals. Cause I know it wasn't, hey, I'm open as a franchisee and now I'm just stroking checks for cash, as you go.
Right. When I came in, there was HomeVestors was like almost the only lender besides private money. Right. So, and then that's changed over time and we have a ton now. HomeVestors is the majority of the lending. I get right through HomeVestors. They have an in-house lending company, and I've seen multiple iterations of time in the last 10 years that I've seen other companies drop out. COVID was a big one. We had a lot of people leave people at the table. If I'm signing a contract that's pretty much no guarantee, I got to make sure that thing closes. So in Jeff's world, that means that I know I have the money. I also know that the funding that I'm putting through HomeVestors is going to work out. As long as I'm hitting certain metrics and parameters and I'm within a certain box, it's going to work. And that's been key. I mean, back in 2013, 14, unless you knew a lot of doctors, which I didn't at the time. So, I knew a bunch of jarheads in the Marine Corps, but that probably wasn't gonna give me a lot of money. So, HomeVest, that was a big selling feature for HomeVestors, is the in-house lending that they have. And they it hasn't changed since. It's been constant, and in any market, they will continue to lend, which has been great.
Now that you've been with HomeVestors for 10 years, how has your business changed? You've obviously picked up rentals along the way. So kind of talk about that 10-year journey and kind of where you see that moving in the future.
Man, it has been one hell of a ride. I'll tell you that. And I actually did move markets a couple of times. I probably didn't say that. I did start in Cleveland, Ohio. My wife actually took a job in Chicago, so we were over there for a couple years. And I've been here in Columbus since 2017. So for 6 years or so, man, it's been 6 years already.
I always say real estate feels like dog years, like 1 year in real estate is 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I try to keep my hair really short, not just from the military, but because there's a lot of gray there, and most of it came out in the last 10 years. So I can say, yeah, it is a lot. I've learned a hell of a lot. I started with no experience in this, wanting to create wealth. We've had double the amount of rentals at one point that we have today. And I think it's like, franchise, not just franchisees, but real estate investors come into this and it's like, sky's the limit. I just talked to a guy yesterday, more. That's who I was. I think I wrote down, HomeVestors asks you all the time, how many houses do you want to buy in a year? And I think I put 101. And the reason I put 101, because the guy next to me put 100. So I was like, well, I got to do more than that guy. You know, the reality is I think I did 12 houses my first year, and that's not a bad amount. Right. So I think what you look at, and especially with YouTube and all this stuff that's there now, you know, you see, like I said before, you see people that are doing just a massive amount of activity, and you're like, well, I gotta 10x this thing. I gotta I gotta go bigger. I gotta this is crazy. Like I gotta get there. I've seen the back end of some of those, not all. I think there's some great investors out there, and certainly within HomeVestor, we have guys that do 200 houses a year, and they're great. They have a great business, but I think it's more about, I've learned a lot about myself and what I want. Right. So like young Jeff with the Ferrari and all that. I mean, look, I could do that, but I don't want that. So the growth happens not just within the real estate, but because of the people I'm around, and hopefully around great people that start to get you thinking about what you really want and what really makes sense to you, that you start looking at this from the perspective of your goal planning changes completely. Like let's say 3 years ago, all of a sudden the goals changed to less, and to actually almost less on all accounts. Like we say call the herd, like getting rid of crap rentals, because I'm like, I'll just make it a rental, like 1-bedroom house with a terrible foundation. Like it's like in a not great area. I mean, that's always going to be a problem child rental. Like, I'm like, maybe I just focus on the good stuff, focus on the goals of in retirement. What does that look like? What do I really want in my life right now? You know, as you get older, like I'm 43 now. So you cross that 40 threshold, and it's like, man, what do I really want to do? And like the stress city that I had, like day in, day out, like I kind of wanted to figure out a way to get rid of. And I've been almost in the last couple of years, I think because I've honed it a little bit more, and there's been less of an anxiety there to produce, like it's been great. Like these last couple of years have been great. And that COVID was a part of that. And that was a stress monster for a little while, but you know, I felt like I was in a good place, and you know, we've learned a lot. So, you know, coming from the beginning, it was, you know, assigning and wholesale and learning and really learning, and, you know, moving up into a little bit stronger rehab, starting to look at metrics and margins, and, you know, starting to look at the team I have around me a little bit more with accounting and bookkeeping and my own personal team. I have a part-time coordinator, which we call a coordinator. It's an office manager. And I have my acquisitions lady, and I have a crew of small crew that does the rehab. So we're pretty, I think that's pretty consistent with a lot of HomeVestors franchises. We're very conservative, and we're very tight on our overhead. We don't have a huge teams, not a lot, not the majority, I would say. Our overhead being the highest amount of overhead we have is certainly our ad spend. And bringing those leads in. But that's kind of been the journey here. And now I don't know, I'm in a pretty good place. We're looking at, now that we're a little bit lower on the rent portfolio, like peppering those back in. I think I do want to grow that. I probably want to double that again, but we're going to look at management and, you know, all those things that, you know, does it make sense for me to do that? Or is my time better spent doing something else, like running or hanging out with my kids? Or we've got a second home down on a lake, so I want to spend more time there. So, you know, you really start looking at these things, and sometimes adding in complexity just doesn't really make a difference for your margin. You know, I think property management is one of those. I don't manage my properties. I think a lot of people think they want to control it, and I know that there's waste, and I know there's loss that occurs, and I know there's expense. But for me, in order for me to do it appropriately, and I think a lot of people, you've got to take on a lot, and it's an entirely another business. It's not just something you can kind of maybe tack right on to something. So there is a situation that I'll probably go that route at some point, but it takes a while, takes time. Right now, I'm totally happy paying for somebody else to do it and deal with the toilets that back up in the middle of the night.
I was going to say, that's often what I talk with people about, even early on, looking to start with investing, you know, picking up that first property or 2 or 3 as like, look, do you really want to have your time get sucked into managing the properties? For some people, they might enjoy doing it. They might not want to pay that cost. But the reality is why don't you think about having somebody that's all they do it, and free up your time to go focus on growing your portfolio versus managing the properties and figuring out how to do a lease, or figuring out, you know, what to do when somebody's not paying and how does that work? Well, stay in your lane, let those people do a great job of that. And then that allows you to go do a great job of growing your portfolio.
Absolutely. And I would say the other thing to that is, like, always understand that you only get somebody 80% of the way. It's never going to be the way you want it to be. It's never going to be 100%, but you have to be comfortable with the 80%. Now, if somebody's not 80%, you probably want to find somebody that's 80%, but know that there's going to be 20% you're going to have to live with or deal with, and that's okay.
That's the price you pay for not being Jeff's property management company. Right. And you got to be okay with that, right?
You got to be okay with some loss. It's just going to happen. It's okay.
Yep. Real estate agents, are you tired of letting the busyness of life get in your way from achieving your real estate investing goals? I'm super excited to announce we've created the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe. It's a place for you to come, get educated, and network with others so that you can make sure that you're hitting your real estate investment goals. So find out more on our website, realfreedom.com. Click on the store link. We've got a membership, we've got a mastermind group, and some private coaching as well. Check it out. I've priced it super low. The goal is to get you in, not have price be a determining factor to keep you from your goals. So come check it out, schedule a call with me, and we're happy to see where your real estate journey is going to take you. Yeah, for people that want to, that they're interested to learn more about maybe becoming a franchise or just kind of talking to you about real estate investing in general, how can they do that?
Yeah, I love talking to people regardless. Jeff.Hotz, Hotz at HomeVestors, HomeVestors.com. You can reach me right there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Like I said, I know so many people have seen the billboards and they're curious to know how does that work on the back end and see the value that they provide you. And so sounds like things are going really well and it's really helped you kind of get where you want to go in your career. And congratulations on that and best of luck to you in the future.
Right. Thanks so much.